Hello, I'm Hushchot and welcome to Let's H. Check out the links in my blurb, follow me on social media, and subscribe to my channel if you like what I do. Become a patron on Patreon for more rewards. That's the best way to keep me making even more great videos and other quality content for you. So today, we have a review. Another review. That's right. It's of the movie Hell and Back, which was released in 2015. Yeah, I didn't hear about it either. I saw a trailer that a friend linked me to, and I thought, well, this looks intriguing, so I decided to check it out. Unfortunately, what I got, sadly, was not exactly what I was expecting. I'll go over some great stuff first. The stop-motion animation was fantastic. The visual impact of pretty much everything reminds me of something like Mad Monster Party, which is a good thing. I loved Mad Monster Party. Unfortunately, Hell and Back doesn't quite have the same appeal as Mad Monster Party, though. Although the acting is very good, and it's amazing that they got some of the actors, like Susan Sarandon, for example, it just comes off as kind of, well, I don't want to say safe, because it's a little bit more complex than that. This is an it's complicated sort of movie. The thing is, most of the time, they play it too safe with some of the humor, rendering the jokes unfunny and wondering why they even bothered to go even remotely in that direction. The times where they go too far are usually in terms of subject. These are hard subjects to actually make funny, but they try through wordplay and jokes, which unfortunately doesn't work because the script is not tight enough to allow for humor with such difficult topics. The places where they could have been more outrageous just come off like nothing much. Ho-hum, they're not funny. But when they try and do something more controversial and daring and try and get out of the safe zone, it ends up just falling flat. All of those jokes tank. That really says essentially what's wrong with the film. It comes off as kind of a bro film, but only if your bros are kind of boring. Sorry to say it. And I legitimately feel bad about saying it that way because there are parts of the film that actually should be applauded. Like, even though it's easy to try and make a homophobic joke at several points in the film, they don't really end up making homophobic jokes, and I'd like to talk about this for a little bit because it's something close to home to me. I don't like it when people make jokes that are only funny depending on how homophobic the audience is. If it plays upon the audience's insecurity and counts on their homophobia for something to be funny, it's not funny. It's homophobic. And it's definitely not progressive. What Hell and Back gives us, though, is actually several points where it could have been ugly. It could have been genuinely homophobic, or dependent on a homophobic response by the audience, but it chose the high road, surprisingly. I have to laud it for that. In a script full of kind of tacky jokes and very lowbrow humor, ultimately it took the high road in several places where it didn't have to, and it ended up being respectable, at least in a small way, for that. The story follows two friends who, through plot contrivance, get a friend of theirs dragged into hell. They go after him to save him, and it's essentially all about all their adventures in hell trying to get to him. They end up meeting with the devil himself, and even meeting Orpheus, whom they hear can get people out of hell that aren't meant to be there. However, nothing really goes as planned, and they end up spending a lot more time in hell than they thought they would, and going on adventures that they didn't think they would have to go on. They end up meeting a demon named Dima, or more accurately a half-demon, who comes along with them to try and resolve their story. The designs for the demons and the designs for hell itself are rather marvelous. I actually quite like them. As someone who is way into demonology and has read so much in terms of the history of demons and the very conception of the various hell concepts, it's fascinating to me to see them realized in such a way. Of course, none of this could happen without the masterful sculpting for the stop-motion animation, so definitely kudos to that. Visually, it is certainly a feast for the eyes. It's something that will keep you amused if all you're looking for is a visual impact, definitely. Unfortunately, the story just kind of plateaus. early on. They're supposed to be concerned about this place where they work. All three of these main characters, the two adventuring through hell and the one who's supposed to be their kind of friend that they nonetheless don't really treat very friendly. None of the three really treats the other two as particularly friends generally would, but maybe it's a little more realistic for some people. Like, I know some people have that kind of friendship where it's not an affectionate friendship, but it's still a friendship. I guess if people are willing to go to hell to get you out because they made a mistake and sent you to hell, then they must be okay friends, at least. But we're supposed to believe that they care a lot about this place where they work, this fair, which is in big danger of being shut down. Possibly the most glaring oversight in it is the fact that we never see them build much of that. Like, they start, but then they leave it and go on to something else. We're supposed to believe that one of them is actually willing to look into dark magic that involves the devil to save this place, when it doesn't actually present to us a very compelling narrative of why they care that much. You're putting your soul in danger. Ultimately, you don't feel a lot for any of the characters that much, even when they try and develop them a little bit more than they do, because either they do or say things that make them seem unsympathetic, or they fail to do anything that really gives an impression for you to care about. So it's ultimately just a bunch of people interacting, and not often in an amusing way, as I've said. The script is not tight enough to really be funny, and it's also not exciting enough to be that compelling. So as a result, you've got about an hour and a half of things happening that you aren't particularly invested in. It's unfortunate because there's a really good idea here. In fact, there are several great ideas. It could have benefited from more revisions, though, I feel, and I kept thinking to myself that if it had been pared down to maybe an hour, it would have been much more palatable. As it is, it overstays its welcome considerably, but that's not to say it's not worth watching maybe once. However, that's with a caveat. When they do try and be outrageous, they're very, very unfunny outrageous. They don't manage to handle anything that's genuinely disturbing or controversial in an amusing way, and as a result it could be offensive for some. I know there were times when I was watching it and thinking about what they were saying or what joke they were trying to make, that if I were more sensitive, I probably would be offended at some of these attempts at humor that didn't quite fire off. However, at the very least, I can say I enjoyed the fact that the stop-motion animation was beautiful, the designs were compelling and interesting, the voice acting was actually very good, and the production was, generally speaking, consistently high quality. I was intrigued by the premise even if it didn't really deliver, and it didn't require a huge amount of emotional investment from me, so that may be a plus if you want to just watch something and not have to actually feel too deeply about it. I know this may sound weird to some people, but sometimes I just want to watch something and not actually care that much about it, or sometimes I want to just have something on while I'm working on something else and not have to pay too close attention because I'm gripped by worrying about whether the characters are going to make it through or whatever, you know. This is the kind of movie that you can put on and literally forget about other than background noise and looking at it every now and then. Like maybe you're baking a cake or something. I know when I'm baking, I like to have something on, usually music, but I know some people that I'm friends with enjoy having the television on or the movie on, you know, whatever, what have you. And of course, now that we've got tablets and all these laptops that you can take around just about anywhere and put anywhere that aren't the weight of a large anvil, you can pretty much take movies everywhere too. So this may be a good choice for that, I don't know. There are some parts, though, that I do feel aren't really suited for a general audience. Like, most people probably shouldn't see this. And I think that's possibly why it didn't do so well in the box office. This is a very particular film, and I think, if I may be so bold as to venture, it may actually be better if you're stoned or drunk or, you know, partaking in some beloved consciousness-altering substance, perhaps? I don't know, because I wasn't while I was watching it, obviously, so I don't actually know. What I got from it was that it could have been a lot better, and probably should have been a lot better. The script was far below the vocal performances and the visuals, which is a shame because they were generally so good. If the script had been more worthy of the rest of the production, it would have been a much better film. But I can't completely throw the script under a bus because it had some genuinely good moments. There were moments where the characters did show that they cared for each other. There were funny moments, even though they were generally mild and not that laugh-out-loud funny. The boy band thing was one moment that I actually found surprisingly funny. The devil also, as a character, was generally very funny, but not like ha-ha funny. More like, that's an interesting character funny. I like the way they skewered drug tests, for example. There's actually a very clever joke about that in the movie itself. And yeah, it's something that people should think about. It's something that's quite a lot of bullshit, as I've said many times, and people just don't occur to think about it. And there are a lot of little similar moments in the movie where it may not be laugh-out-loud funny, but it's amusing in a, well, I guess that is true sort of way. Because while I know I think about things a lot more than a lot of people generally do think over, certain things, it might be an eye-opener for some people to see that, yeah, other people do think about things like that. So it's a very mixed bag. I can't, in good conscience, recommend it to anyone. But I also can't, in good conscience, say that it was a terrible movie. It really wasn't. It made some jokes that didn't work. It went in some directions it shouldn't have. But overall, it's something that is watchable. It's nowhere near as bad as some of the things I've seen. Would I watch it again? No, probably not. Do I regret watching it? Not particularly. It didn't offend me enough to skip through it, which is kind of high criteria. If I hate something enough to skip through it, then it's pretty much a loss, and I regret wasting the time spent watching it. I didn't really do that with this, so I can feel good about that fact. So what did you think of the film? If you've seen Hell and Back, leave me your comments below. I'd like to know what you thought about it, and if you thought it was funny or inappropriate or completely unfunny or what have you. Did you agree with my comments? Tell me all about it. I'd like to point you again to the links in the blurb. Please follow me on social media, subscribe to my channel here, become a patron on Patreon for more quality content. I give a lot of stuff in a month, so you can be assured that I'm going to produce all kinds of fun stuff for you. Plus, patrons get special bonuses that you can't find anywhere else. And I'll see you here again next time. Thanks again for tuning in. Always grateful to have you here. Take care. Bye.